To all those people watching, I like to remind everyone that this video is not made for kids. It's for older fans and adults. Enjoy the fucking video!
Nancy was pleased. She polished the engines in the morning and helped the refreshment lady with the daytime rush. As afternoon turned to evening, she found herself walking to a place she knew well. She stopped, gazing up at the mountains before her. Under the orange sky, everything was beautiful. She sighed contentedly, smiling as she continued her trek, soundtracked by the gentle breeze and distant squawking of birds. Nothing better than this, she thought. Another noise stopped her dead in her tracks. That sounds like a whistle, she thought. But from the mountain? Curious, she chased after it. It wasn't the whistle of any engine she knew. It was a mournful cry. Nancy had long since left the path, pushing past brambles and over hillocks in pursuit of the sound. She had no idea where she was. Miles of mountainous woods stretched out before her. She parted the branches of some bushes and gasped. There stood the remnants of an old shed. It had mostly collapsed, and anything still standing was swallowed in dark moss. As Nancy walked closer, she tripped on something. Rails! This must have been an engine shed, she thought. But how can there be a whistle without an engine? She walked around the shed. Towards the back was a slanted tin roof. She rounded the corner and... Goodness! She cried. A little engine was tucked behind a small stone wall. His boiler was smudged, his funnel riddled with rust, and his face weary. He stared, blinking heavily as his focus rested on Nancy. "A visitor?" he drawled. "Heh, must be my lucky day. What on earth are you doing here?" asked Nancy. "On vacation," answered the engine. "What's it look like? I'm a pile of junk." But, stammered Nancy, "you're a steam engine. You should be on a railway, not stuck here." "Can't work without wheels, kid. I ain't a steam engine. I'm a pumping engine. Or, I was. Not much of anything now." "A pumping engine?" "When you ride rough with no care, you come off the rails. You come off the rails, you can't do your job. You can't do your job? Well, they find a new one for you. Like her or not. Ain't been a true steam engine in a long time." "I heard you whistle," insisted Nancy. "Don't know what you heard, kid, but it couldn't have been me. No need for a whistle when you don't go anywhere." "It had to have been you. There's no other explanation. It's lucky I did come. Now you can be saved." "There's no saving me. I got what I deserved." "No one deserves to languish alone in a state like this," protested Nancy. "Nobody considered taking me when this place shut down," replied the engine, "and I'm in worse shape than I was back then. Look at me, would you choose me over a working steam engine?" Nancy stayed silent. Realistically, she wouldn't. "I ain't the engine that needs saving, kid. Look a little harder around here, and you'll know what I mean. I'm past the point of saving, but I don't want anyone to forget." A clap of thunder cut the engine off. Nancy looked up as the orange sky was blotted with dark grey clouds. The sound of rain on the tin roof soon followed. "Let's get out of here, kid," urged the engine. "This shed ain't much good for shelter." Nancy paused. "I'll tell them all about you," she promised. "No one will forget. We'll be back for you, you'll see." The engine said nothing. It only smirked at her. As Nancy ran back through the forest, desperate to find a path that brought her here, she swore she heard the whistle in the space between thunder and rain. By morning, the storm had passed. Nancy made her way to the shed, eager to tell someone about her discovery. When she arrived, she found a group of men looking at heavily marked maps. "Good morning," she called. "What are you doing?" "We're trying to find a lost little engine," said one man. "Though we're not having much luck," muttered another. Nancy beamed. "Your search is over. I know exactly where he is." Giddy with excitement, Nancy and the rescuers set off to the mountains. She couldn't wait to see the look on the little engine's face. After what felt like eternity, Nancy pushed past the bushes and ran to the remnants of the old shed. "Here we are," she announced. "He's right around—" Her smile fell. The old tin roof had fallen in, and the stone wall was in pieces. Strangest of all, the engine was nowhere to be seen. "Are you having us on?" asked the man sternly. He was here, I swear," stammered Nancy. "I saw him last night." "Great," said the sulky rescuer. "Let on a wild goose chase by his silly—" Crash! They turned around. A plume of dust rose from a spot on a hill. Some of the men ran over to look. "We found him!" they cried with joy. "We found our Sleeping Beauty! You've done it, Nancy!" Nancy ran over to look, but the engine in the hole was much different. He was brown, covered in tarpaulins, and had a tender poking out the back. "But," she said blankly, "that's not him!" The rescuers took no notice. They hurried off to phone for help. Later, the engine had been dug from his shed and loaded onto a truck. Nancy walked over to him and he smiled broadly. "Hello, dear. A pleasure to meet you. My name is Duke. I understand you're the reason I've been found." "Nice to meet you, Duke. I'm Nancy. Truthfully, it's not me who you should be thanking." Nancy explained what happened the night before. "Please tell me you know that engine," she begged. "We must find him." Duke was pale but stern. "If you saw that engine, it's best to forget him. Trouble until the very end he was. Saving him wouldn't suit his grace." "He said he wasn't the engine that needed saving, and that he didn't want anyone to forget." Nancy stared in disbelief. You didn't want anyone to forget you." Duke's expression softened. He stared at the back of the shed where the engine he once knew last stood. Nancy swore she saw a hint of sorrow in his eyes, but before anything more could be said, the truck roared into life and pulled him off to his new home. Nancy never forgot what she saw that night. She was glad Duke had been rescued and often polished him at the shed. They never spoke of that day again, but always gave each other knowing looks. She continued to walk the mountain trail, but never ventured back to the ruins of the shed. Even so, she swears that sometimes she can hear the whistle, the one that drew her in, echoing around the mountain. I wonder if Nancy will ever find an answer. Don't you?